All right, welcome back to the Coyote Theory. If this is your first time here, I'm genuinely glad you found your way in. And if you've been around for a while, you already know something about how I like to approach things. We don't rush ideas here. We sit with them. We turn them around, we question them, we look at them from angles that are sometimes uncomfortable. This is not a place for loud motivation or dramatic promises about overnight transformation. This is a place for honest thinking. I'm the Coyote, and today I want to talk about something almost everyone consumes at some point in their life, but very few people truly integrate self-help. Not the specific books, not the authors, not even the advice itself. I'm more interested in what happens after the last page, after the high fades, after the bookmark closes and life continues. Because here's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Most people don't fail at self-improvement because the ideas are wrong. They fail because they misunderstand what growth actually feels like. And if we misunderstand the feeling of growth, we misinterpret the process. So what I want to do today is simple. I want to explore what really happens between understanding something and becoming it. And I'm not speaking from a pedestal. I'm speaking as someone who has been inside that cycle more times than I'd like to admit. When I realized what I was really doing, I started noticing something about myself a few years ago. Every time I finished a self-improvement book, I felt lighter. Not because my schedule changed overnight, not because my bank account suddenly looked different, not because my habits transformed in a week. I felt lighter because I understood more, and that understanding made me feel responsible. It felt like I had upgraded internally. I would sit there thinking, okay, now I see it. Now I understand why I've been stuck. And that moment feels powerful. There's something deeply satisfying about being able to explain your own behavior. It gives you a sense of control. It makes the chaos feel organized. But here's what I had to admit to myself. Understanding my weakness is not the same as confronting it. I could articulate exactly why I procrastinate. That didn't mean I stopped delaying difficult tasks. I could clearly explain why I avoid uncomfortable conversations. That didn't mean I suddenly handled them better. I could analyze my financial mistakes with precision. That didn't mean I instantly changed my spending patterns. And that's when it hit me. I was slowly building an identity around being aware. I liked being the person who understood growth. I liked being reflective. I liked being, someone who could talk about discipline, mindset, consistency. But there was a gap. I wasn't always the person who practiced those things consistently. And that distinction bothered me because it's subtle. Nobody criticizes you for reading. Nobody questions you for wanting to improve. In fact, people respect it, but repetition is private. Repetition happens when there's no applause, no validation, no visible progress to show off. And I noticed something uncomfortable inside myself. Sometimes I preferred the comfort of insight over the discomfort of action. Not because I'm lazy, because insight feels clean. Action feels exposed. When you act, you risk failing. You risk discovering that you're not as disciplined as you thought. You risk realizing the change is slower than your expectations. Insight doesn't carry that risk. And that's when the theory started forming in my mind. Maybe self-help isn't failing us. Maybe we're using it to feel progress instead of creating it. The part I didn't expect. When I first got into personal development, I assumed something simple. If the ideas are strong enough, change will follow naturally. That's what I believed. And at the beginning, everything feels structured, logical, clear. You read a chapter, and suddenly your life seems more organized in your head. You see patterns, you see mistakes, you see solutions. You feel capable. Then you try to implement it, And something shifts. It's not elegant anymore. It's inconvenient. It asks for consistency on days when your energy is low. It asks for restraint when you feel reactive. It asks for patience when nothing visible is happening. And I noticed something about my own mind. The moment practice became repetitive, my brain started looking for something new, a better explanation, a sharper framework, a more refined system. At the time, it felt reasonable. I told myself I was optimizing, improving my approach, refining my understanding. But if I'm honest, sometimes I was just searching for stimulation. Repetition doesn't entertain the mind. It trains it, and training is slower than inspiration. Inspiration feels powerful immediately. It gives you a surge, a sense of direction. Training feels ordinary, and we underestimate ordinary. So I had to ask myself a difficult question. Was I actually trying to change, or was I trying to stay inside the feeling of becoming someone who changes? Those are not the same experience. One feels progressive and exciting. The other feels demanding and quiet. And growth, real growth, is demanding, not dramatic, not cinematic, demanding in small, consistent ways. It shows up in moments when nobody sees the effort. It shows up when you repeat something, even though it's no longer new. And that's where most people drift away. Not because they're incapable, but because repetition doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like work. The Coyote Theory. So here's my interpretation. Self-help works, but only if it stops being entertainment. Only if it stops being emotional comfort. I don't believe the problem is the books themselves. I don't believe the problem is the ideas. I think the problem is how easy it is to consume wisdom without earning it through repetition. I've closed a book feeling ahead of my life, feeling as if I had already evolved simply because I understood something deeply. But evolution doesn't happen in chapters. It happens in boring Tuesdays, in small decisions nobody sees, in moments where there's no motivation, only commitment. And that's not glamorous. That doesn't sell, but it builds something real. When I think about self-improvement now, I don't automatically ask myself what I should read next. I ask myself what I'm avoiding practicing. That question shifts everything because it removes the illusion. It brings responsibility back to behavior. At the end of the day, ideas don't reshape identity. Behavior does. Insight can guide you, but repetition rewires you. And if I'm going to call this the Coyote Theory, then this is what I stand by. Growth doesn't happen when you understand more. It happens when you tolerate more. More discomfort, more repetition, more days where nothing feels extraordinary. That's a very different game than chasing inspiration. It's quieter, but it's stronger. And once you see that difference, you stop chasing highs. You start building depth, and depth changes you in ways inspiration never will.